Actually, it's funny. There are wide-angle lenses that you can attach to phones, and I have a collection of them, but my wide-angle one is missing. Or else I would have brought that one.
Do you know anything about the visit of the first folio? I got a message from the library, but it just said it starts and it would be there for about a week.
The first what?
The first folio, Shakespeare's first folio, is coming to the library. Do you know anything?
No, I haven't heard anything about it.
It's coming to the main. I think they sent it to you all while you were gone over the weekend. But if the first folio is on loan from the Folger Library, and it's traveling around the country. It's going to be the main library.
I don't know if I saw an email from you, but I get the library.
Yeah. Well, I sent it. I still haven't gotten your email in my computer, so I sent it to.
Maybe Jack has it.
I think sent it to Jack.
But I may or may not have deleted the one from the library.
Yeah. I opened it up and I went, oh, how many times as an English major did I read or write Folger Library?
But if by any
It's the big
chance I
Shakespeare.
ever go and you can't get it, let me know and I can contact some of my national contacts who are missing and identify people.
Wonderful, that would be great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Would you kindly
You did?
just sit outside for another 5 minutes or so?
Yeah, make sure they get in.
All right, let's go with the camera.
Thank you.
Is it on?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, then we're ready to start. Thanks everyone for coming. Sorry it's a little bit of a late start and a different room than we're used to. I'm Michael Iverson, Chair of the Community Council, and we can get right into it with our police, Detective King. Give us some updates.
Again, Detective King with Salt Lake Police. It seems like looking at a lot of the stats, a lot of it's the same that I've talked about. Just some people taking just crimes of opportunity. The biggest thing I wanted to hit on, not a lot of people are aware, but I guess let me backtrack a little bit. One of the things that it seems like people are getting caught up on a lot in is some kind of an internet scam of some kind. There's some kind of a merchandise to be bought and promise of payment. We've had issues with people with selling dogs where they take it down deposit, but the dog never meets up with them or whatever it is. Sometimes people meet up and they're wanting to sell like an iPad or something, and money gets stolen, or they're selling and the iPad gets stolen. And one of the things we want to say is that if you guys do get involved in something like that, where you want to make that transaction, the department's here is it's a good spot. We suggest you can come here and meet here in the lobby to make those transactions, to try to avoid some of those potential issues. I know I've done it in the past where I've sold stuff, and me being paranoid as I am, if somebody's not willing to meet me here, I probably will overlook some of the sales or whatever. I mean, it's one of those things where I've done stuff where I've bought stuff on the sight unseen, and I know I've taken a chance, and fortunately for me it's worked out, but we do get a lot of that where people scam, people show up and like, oh, let me look at that iPad, let me look at it, and then they just take it and they're gone. And then it kind of creates a little bit of an issue, but we do offer that if you want to sell stuff here, if there's issues with children exchange, that's something you guys, we say, you can meet here at the police department. It's a neutral area so that there can be that transaction to hopefully prevent any further issues or anything like that. I know last time we talked a little bit about Richmond Park and some of the other issues. I haven't heard of too many issues continuing. After we had the meeting here, we had a meeting with some of the neighbors and Derek Kitchen talking about some of the issues. It seems like a lot of the problems in Richmond Park has tailored off. Some of the areas have kind of picked up, so it is an issue that we know about. We're still trying to continue to work to try to get that taken care of. Does anyone have any questions for me? Yeah.
Just an amazing experience with Craigslist, kind of stuff. Through one of my tenants, his motorcycle was stolen, and it was recovered because it was used as collateral when another motorcycle was stolen. So they took his bike and went to get a more expensive bike, and they left his bike as collateral while they took the more expensive bike, and then they never came back, but he got his bike back when people who lost their bike called about their stolen bike, and they realized that the collateral was stolen.
That does happen quite a bit where people leave stuff and they think everything's on the up and up. And it's one of those things too where if I'm involved in something like that, I try to go for rides. I try to make sure I'm getting an actual, I ask for, if they're going to take something of mine, test it out, whatever, me personally, I like making sure you got a driver's license, making sure it's them, and actually getting that information just in the rare case that they do take off, that at least you have some kind of a follow-up. And the one thing I do recommend always is just serial numbers on anything. Guns, specifically with guns, TVs, speakers, anything that has a serial number, we need it. That helps out a lot. I think I've said it before here where I had a specific situation where it was an ex-Navy SEAL, had a high-end AR-15 custom built for him. It ended up being like a $4,000 or $5,000 gun, and he thought he had it hid in the back of his car pretty good. Well, he goes golfing, comes out, and it's gone. And because he had the serial number, we were able to eventually find it in a pawn shop. It took 2 years for someone to pawn it, but we were able to trace it back to the person who actually stole it. So sometimes that stuff might take a little bit, but it helps out a lot. The other thing that's overlooked a lot is serial numbers on bikes. Bikes are highly stolen. We get a lot of them taken over here at the library. Sometimes people just get those like little cable locks, and a lot of times people have bolt cutters that will just cut through those like nothing. So get good heavy duty locks and get serial numbers on bikes. Within Salt Lake, there's actually an ordinance that you need to register your bike with the city. It's like $1 registration every year, I think. And they actually give you a sticker, and that helps us so that if something happens, we can hopefully try to trace the bike and eventually recover it if we find it. But serial numbers are big. But
And you also need the serial numbers for your insurance.
yep.
So,
Yeah.
that up early.
Jewelry. Take pictures of your jewelry and take pictures of you with the jewelry, so that helps with insurance. Sometimes it gets a little tricky, I think, trying to get it back from like pawn shops and stuff, but if you have pictures documenting it, it does help out a lot. So that is some things that we definitely need. And then if you guys,
Have you ever thought about doing some sort of a sting with bicycles, leaving a bicycle on somebody's front porch and watching it to try and catch
They've
these
done it.
people?
They've done it, and it's worked out. Sometimes it doesn't work out. And I mean, I know that our department, they've done stuff with like cars where they leave cars running right in the middle of the street and no one takes it. Sometimes I don't know what it is. There's not a specific thing. I think sometimes it's just that prime of opportunity that people take advantage of.
The people that they've caught, are they usually people that are high on drugs and just need cash, need to pawn something?
I think it's a mixture of everything. I think a lot of the stuff is used for drug money. Sometimes it's just used for other stuff. It's just whatever that person needs at the time to get whatever his objective is. But I think drugs do have a huge impact on that. Any other questions? Yeah.
The quote crackdown that happened around Rio Grande, the results from that, was that successful enough that the city and the police are thinking about doing it again?
I know Hildy's going to talk about that. She has a little bit more information than I do. I know it was a big success, but as far as what's going on in the future, I don't know. I don't know how the department looks at it. I'm sure that from it, I would guess that maybe something might happen, but I haven't heard of anything. I think it's something that they've done. They're trying a little bit different approach to some things, and then they'll probably sit back and evaluate it as far as whether they consider it a success or not. But Hildy has the information on that.
I'll talk more about that, and so I'll give some numbers and talk about like how long they're planning, how long people have to be there for the treatment and all that stuff.
Okay. Yeah.
I hear there was a body found at 2nd and 2nd last week.
body at Second and Second?
Yeah, got a message from someone who saw it outside a beer bar at about 2 a.m. With police with a sheet covering the body, and then they linked me to a police report that said something about a body being found. But
If it's what I'm thinking of, I believe in that area, reading over some reports, I think they might have found someone that they might believe it had some drug related,
Okay.
but there wasn't anything really that I remember that in the watch command logs or just talking that really stood out as anything of great significance.
okay.
So, if you guys want to contact me, my number is 801-799-3624, or I can be contacted at CIU District 4 at slcgov.com. Yeah.
And just one more question. This one's coming from our live chat. They're asking about cleaning up the sidewalks on 6th and 5th. And there are laws that forbid overnight camping because this person thinks Barb Tate thinks it's out of control.
Definitely something we're working with. We have the health department that goes out and helps us out a lot, where we go and we post for the camps, and then the health department, we go and try to clean up some of the abandoned property and try to get those areas moved up. I know that specific area is one that the health department and I have gone to quite frequently to try to help keep it clean and try to move along. I know that the health department has that on their radar.
So on the postings they put up, does it have information about resources they can access to get off the streets?
The specific posting from the health department just says that they're in a non-camping area. As far as with resources and stuff to help them out, that is something that we constantly go through. I know last night they did a cleanup on 500 West, and they had some of the social workers going out before talking with people, trying to help them out, trying to give them those resources. So, yeah.
Yeah, we put in a call probably early in the summer about the camper, in front of the house for 3 days and don't know what's been, and I'm starting to see them all over the area. I don't know if this is, we're a year and a half in the city, I don't know if this is a summer event that happens.
With the
Campers parked everywhere that are.
you mean specifically like RVs and stuff?
Yeah, the RVs, they're all, they're older things that I don't know why they're there. Do you know why they're there, or what's going on? Is it?
You can't keep them in your front yard. It's against the law to park them in your front yard in your driveway.
Yeah.
So I think some people move them around so that they don't have to store them in a storage lot.
Oh, okay.
That would be my guess. We have, I live on Fifth South, and
Yeah.
and I work for the planning division too, so I
Okay.
know sort of from
And I
both
know
sides.
there's laws that you can't leave a vehicle parked out in front of your house for 2 days.
Yeah, okay.
Right, they get moved.
And so I think that's what people do, is they move them around to try to,
Because they all seem like, you don't see any newer ones, they're all older campers.
Mhm.
So I just.
yeah. I know a lot of times around Pioneer Park, I think people are living in them.
That I can understand.
And I think that's one of the things is people just move around so they're not getting hassled about the 2 days, but also different areas they can move around, and they're not staying in one spot at any great length of time.
What if they're repeat offenders? Like they'll move 2 days and then come back, move 2 days, come back.
Well, that's one of the problems we have. Like when I've gone out with the health department, where they'll post saying you need to get your stuff cleaned up because we're coming back tomorrow to clean up. Well, then they move across the street.
Mhm.
Then we got to go repost it. And then they move
Back.
back down the road, and so a lot of times it is just chasing around, but trying to keep them moving and trying to keep.
You're getting excited. Don't get excited.
I'm not excited.
Okay, thank you.
So, all right.
Representative?
Since Angela's out there, I want to wait till she comes
Okay,
back on her
that's
call,
all
so
right.
if you've got somebody else that can.
Don't actually see Derek here, but we have someone from our mayor's office. Which I just realized I don't have on the agenda, but that's all right. Come on up.
Okay, I know, I was like, oh,
I'll
well.
find out whatever that was.
Might shut the door.
Yeah.
There.
Yeah, I don't know.
Sound like dance club music. Maybe police themes.
Sirens, yeah.
Yeah.
We're just playing a movie in the
They
other room.
they party here at the end of the
No,
day.
like,
Fire and police dance party.
So good afternoon. I brought, first of all, one of the things I wanted to talk about as fall, as we can feel the fall, the rain, and all this lovely weather. So you can request an extra bin for your leaves free of cost right now. So it's first come, first served basis. So I was like, if you do need an extra bin right now for your leaves, please do contact. I brought some flyers I put in here. Also, we have the mailing list for the mayor's office. If you like to be put in the mailing list, please, I'm going to pass this around. Put your information, and we'll go ahead and do that. So I'll pass this ones around, and the leaves, flyers, if anyone like one. So I'm going to talk a little bit, of course, homeless issues, and that's been from morning I wake up to the morning I go to sleep. That's all I talk about. But as you probably heard in the news, first of all, we are looking forward working with the city council. We agree on 4 locations. We're going to have 4 centers, 150 each. So the mayor and the council, it's going to take a little bit longer than we were thinking about October, but it's going to go to probably November when we make the decision. But they're going to pick 8 locations, which right now they have not been picked, and it's going to be brought up to the public. And then the public is going to have their input. But this is going to be something that the city council and the mayor are going to work together on finding the location. So, so when we have those dates or for the public input, we will make sure to post that information. One of the things on the operation diversion, and I apologize, I have to write the numbers because I wanted to make sure that I had it correct. The first one, there was about a week ago, it was in the morning, and we had about 50 people plus that we were, they said 51, and 40 were referred to treatment, 10 were walked out, which those 10 people will be prosecuted and they will go to jail. Okay, so the 10 of them, 11 went straight to jail, and 2 people went to the hospital, and they're still in the hospital at this time. Okay. In regards to the operation that happened on Monday night, and please know that this has been going for a long time. So they started talking about it in March, and then they started looking for funding. They got their funding in June, and then that's how they look for the cooperation for all the parties' involvement. So it's been a process for a long time, you know, working together on getting this. This is the first in its kind, this operation diversion, because they want to make sure that it's not just going and picking up people, putting them in jail, and then again they go back in the system, right? Because it's a revolving door. So they are making sure that they get the services. They have funding up to 6 months for people to get treatment, and after that they'll work with the people, try to find housing or and places for them, or whatever the needs are for each individual. And as long as they have funding, these operations will be happening, and they're not going to be telling people when they're going to happen, right? We want to make sure. So sorry, you had a question.
Okay, so what you're telling me is they're going out picking up homeless people and helping them to get into some sort of treatment. Is this what you're telling me?
So what they're going in is that what they're trying to do is separate the criminals, right, from going into the homeless population, and separate the criminals that are preying on the vulnerable people, the homeless, right? So they're going in there and they are arresting a lot of the dealers, the people that have criminal back there once they're selling, they're going straight to jail. The people that have, you know, substance abuse or drug, they are in need of that, they're going to the treatment. And if they choose not to go to treatment, they go straight to jail. But the DA is working very much about making sure that are being prosecuted. And the Salt Lake County Jail has open beds for it, and we have the beds for the treatment. So it is something that everyone's working together to make sure that the people are getting the services, and the people that are, you know, they're getting prosecuted. So it is something that, so last one on Monday, and I apologize, it's the numbers that I have right now, and I don't have how many people have walked out or that information at this point, but I have 40 people plus were taken, 7 to 8 people went straight to jail, and the other ones went to get services went to get treatment. So those are the numbers that I have right now. And of course, in the process, I was told that over 100 people have been arrested in this whole process that they've been doing. With the officers, the officers patrol have doubled in Salt Lake City. And they look at the CompStat, so the numbers that Detective King was talking about and looks at and depending. So they go through that, and depending on those numbers, how many phone calls, all this, is where they put the patrol. So we always say, please call and make call, and if you see things happening, because that's where the numbers that they're guiding them for having the officers go through. Okay. So, and in regards to how long this is going to last is until we have the funding. And so, of course, we always hope that we can have more. But officers been, not searching, they've been, looking, doing some work and trying to kind of like I forgot the word in English, but behind doors, right, and no one knows that they're kind of looking at what's happening in the city for about 5 to 6 weeks prior to this. So, and we know that the population has been moving to some areas, so it's very important for, you guys to know if it's moving to some different areas, to let us know, to let the officers know, call if you see criminal activity happening and those things. So like I said before, we're going to work onto the 4 centers, 150 people, but once again, it's going to take a little bit of time longer because we have to redo our budget and numbers and everything. But the mayor was always open to different ideas, and so when the city council got the information from the community that's what they wanted, and so the mayor was very open and willing to work with them on that. So that's what I have for it at this time. If you have questions or anything, please know my door is always open. I brought my business cards, I put them in my coat, so I'm happy to pass them out. My office number is 801-535-7238. So you can always reach out to me. Any questions?
Yes. I have a question. I don't know, this is probably more appropriate for Councilman Kitchen, and I'm hoping that maybe he'll be here tonight. If not, I'll circle back with either he or Councilman Penfold on this. But I have some concerns in terms of the cost, because we're moving from having to do operations for 2 facilities now to 4. And I don't know, as part of the budget, how that was figured out moving forward in terms of maintaining the operations of 4 facilities.
Right, and that's a little bit more than the information that they provided to me. All I know is that they had to go back and pencil all the numbers and everything back.
Okay.
But that was something that, the council and the mayor sit down and talked.
Okay.
And so I know that there's some, things that they're looking at how to budget that. So I apologize. I
No,
cannot
that's fine.
answer
I
exact
didn't. I
numbers.
just thought maybe.
No,
I mean, that's probably.
I wish I could.
That's
I'd be
okay. No,
happy
that's
to.
probably it's the biggest question I have, because we as the legislature set aside $7 million to cover over 3 years of services,
Correct.
and that is hardly anything.
Correct.
And I honestly don't know how. I mean, we're probably going to have to go back and ask for more money, and it would be helpful to know what that might look like if they want more money from the state. Because again, just operationally, I'm just trying to figure out how we're going to do 4 centers. So
Yeah. So and I wish that Council Kitchen could be here to answer that. But I'm happy to look into that and get back with you. I'm happy to look at that information and talk to, get those numbers or their idea and get back with you. I'm happy to do that.
From the news articles and some of the stuff that went on about that, Representative Hughes played a role in that decision-making process, so I'm sure that was talked about at the time, the financing, I would hope.
That's
I would hope.
my concern is that we haven't been involved in that, so we have no idea whether it was or not, and to what extent was that what was the commitment on the part of the
And I spoke to Representative Speaker Hughes, and his whole point was he appreciated the work. I want to make this point. We appreciate the work that our mayor has done and her staff. They've worked their tails off on this. And I think this gets lost in the political rhetoric. Speaker Hughes and I had a couple conversations about this, and he was there because he trusts Jennifer Seelig and Dave Lidback. And I wanted my council members to be here to hear this. One of the reasons why he was there was because of them. And so we have to remember, this is about what's effective policy, how are we going to serve our constituents, and not get caught up in who looks good. Because at the end of the day, this is about people and serving people. And so I want people to know, and my speaker Hughes will say this, a lot of the reason why he was even at the table was because of the work he has had in the past with former Representative Seelig and Litvak and Biskuski. So I want our council to be aware of that.
Thank you so much, and I'm just kind of going with that, and that's why the mayor, I mean, even with the operation diversion, it's not about just cut, like I stated before, like before in the past, swaps will have happened, right, people went to jail and they were released. The mayor wants to make sure that the people are getting the services, are getting the help needed, and so, and like I said, we have gotten so much positive. We got letters from parents stating that, you know, thank you so much. For some reason or other, they knew that their children were taken into the service, right, to get the treatment, and they were so thankful. And it's like, this is what my kid needed. Thank you so much. And so they never, you know, they're just a positive of that. Even with the local businesses downtown, they're seeing a change. And so slowly, of course, everything takes, but they're seeing something happening. And so, and we want to make sure, it's our community, we want to make sure that we give everyone that respect and dignity like everyone deserves. So that's what we mostly want.
Thank you.
Yeah.
One last question.
I still struggle with the whole process and Representative Hughes and the mayor making decisions for the whole city without involving the council people, because when you're talking about 250 bed units going into a neighborhood and an area, it's a major impact, and I can appreciate the friction and what happened. And the whole process was necessary to have that work out.
No, and I agree, but then there's a time to put egos behind on both ends. I'm not talking about just council and people working together for the betterment of the community. And, you know, the discussion of the 250 beds, like even the previous administration had did the research too. So this wasn't just Mayor Biskuski, this was the previous administration, and there's a role for the legislature or city council, and the role for an
legislature is
executive
always
branch.
influenced in every decision it makes by dollars, and not always what's best for the community.
And that's my biggest concern.
Yeah,
And that's
it's
our
not
concern.
always what's best for the community. They can frame that in any way you want, as often as you want, because it's an issue that impacts a lot of people. But when you're so cheap in spending and trying to spend money to solve problems, it's hard to swallow.
Well, I
sometimes.
understand, 'cause
Yeah,
I would
sure.
like to invest a lot of money in public education.
Yeah.
But what I'm trying to say, and I'm not justifying anyone's actions,
Yeah.
what I'm saying is that there was a lot of research that was put into this prior by the previous administration. This issue could have been addressed then too. So my point is, we can't put it all on one administration that hasn't even been there a year, which certain council members, I feel like, kind of went that direction. That's all I'm saying. And this is a community issue. And so we all have to make sure that we're accountable for what we do, and that now that we're at a place, we need to figure out how to work it out and make sure that we're serving people. And this is going to change the process, because now we have to look at other sites and look at everything. And my concern is, I represent the western end of the city.
Yes.
We're already taking the prison. We already have a lot of things. So how are we going to share this? And why isn't parts of other Salt Lake County sharing this before?
Yeah,
I mean,
sure.
we just agreed to take four facilities.
Yes.
Why wasn't that spread out through the county? So I have questions too, but we weren't there to be at the table to get those questions answered.
Thank you, Hildegard.
Well, thank you so much, and like I said, we're looking forward, and your input is very important, so we'll let you know when we have those dates for the summit.
Great.
Thank you very much.
And she's got business cards if you have
Yes,
other
and I
questions.
do. Thank you so
Just
much.
as we're looking at the schedule here, do we have someone from Right Development? Okay, do we have anyone from SLC Green? Great. Okay, well, let's get our legislators up here and we'll move on from there. So just a little background, Right Development is working on the development where the Sizzler is. Hopefully they'll show up. I guess we'll see. But legislators?
Yeah, well, I was glad to have Hildy here, because a lot of where I think us as Salt Lake City legislators are, we're trying to figure out what's going on with the homeless situation, to be quite honest with you. And so we're just trying to catch up. We're getting some regular reports in terms of the diversion operation and where they're at in terms of individuals that are being picked up. But looking at it at a 30,000-foot level, that's why we were bringing up our concerns, is the sustainability of moving into this direction is something that we're very, very concerned about. Yes, notably, it makes more sense to do this in smaller facilities, we get that. But I'm concerned, I think we're concerned as Salt Lake City legislators, is that Salt Lake City has once again made a commitment to carry the brunt of the majority of the population, the homeless population, and services therewith. So we'll keep as much of a handle on it as we possibly can. I think that if we're moving in this direction, negotiating into these 4 facilities, that the state is going to have to put more skin in the game. I just don't know how $7 million, that's not going to go far at all for services. It just isn't. So I think that that's the direction we're going to go. I know that Representative Romero is working on some of the changes that may need to be made related to our Justice Reinvestment Act in terms of penalties, because that kind of caught us off guard in terms of applicability. It was the right public policy to implement in terms of possession and the types of penalties that are there for possession of drugs, but it caught us off guard as to how to implement it because we didn't have the funding for Medicaid expansion or the resources for recovery services for these individuals, so many of them that need this behavioral.
And our concern isn't the youth, well, we want everyone not to use, but our concern is the drug dealers who have kind of figured out how to work the system. And so we're looking at whether we have to introduce new legislation to ensure that we're protecting the vulnerable, the victims, and how do we ensure that we're holding the drug dealers accountable? And is that going to be admin law, or do we have to look at legislation? So I'm working with Eric Hutchings, who is the chair of criminal justice and law enforcement appropriation, and he's the sponsor of the restorative justice bill. And with we're looking at what we can do, whether it has to be legislative or if it's admin law that we do in regards to addressing that particular issue.
In terms of the penalties.
And so we're meeting with law enforcement to kind of figure that out.
So the other piece, obviously, and I'm glad for the 6-month grant. It'll be good to kind of really hit things hard. A saturation of effort that needs to be there for those folks. But I'm concerned about the continuity of being able to provide the services. And we all know, if anybody has been involved with working with individuals who are in recovery, it's going to take a lot of time for a number of these people, depending on the severity of their conditions, to get to rebound the way they need to. And I'm happy for the fact that there's a direction into moving into affordable housing, but if we don't have case management for these individuals on top of that housing, we are going to be in the same mess. So know that that's probably my biggest concern, and I'm trying to insert myself as much as I possibly can in understanding what decisions have been made at the city and county level, and help wherever I can related to the state level. Still, I think that's probably the thing that's percolating the most, at least for me, as of late, is how to make sure that we're a partner, state partner, in addition to what the county and the city are doing with homelessness.
The speaker is committed to me that he wants to work with us on this, so we'll see moving ahead. I mean, he's made that commitment, so we'll see what happens. And I always trust people at face value, and so we'll go forward from there. I've always had a pretty good relationship with him, and he seems pretty committed. But, again, I want to know why we committed to 4 centers in Salt Lake City, and so we weren't part of that conversation. So until we get feedback, I don't really, that's a question that
we're entering with cautious eyes wide open as best we can. So, in terms of other issues, we're winding down in terms of our interim session, the meetings that we have during the interim May through November as legislators and planning for next session. Bills that we're working on. Angela, the bills that I'm working on are a lot of cleanup bills, so I don't really have anything pressing right now related to election stuff. So
we're all running for re-election, and so you'll see us knocking on doors. We're both unopposed, but that doesn't mean we don't support our constituents and not want to
we'll
be
still
there
be out there knocking
on doors and doing things. But
we're all checking in.
We're also focusing on policy. I've been working with the Attorney General's office. We're looking at human trafficking and some of the populations that we're seeing within the home, that are homeless are between 18 and 24. So we're looking at legislation in which we can do to make sure that we're protecting them, because many times they become victims of perpetrators. And so we want to ensure that we're providing them with the resources that they need as well. So we're doing some cleanup on human trafficking. I am going to ask to mandate the processing of all rape kits. I'm working with law enforcement right now, because it's just not processing of all rape kits, it's funding the crime lab, there's a lot that goes in with that. So majority of my free time, outside of my other full-time job, is working on some human trafficking issues and the processing of all rape kits. And so that's kind of what I've been doing and trying to help out as much as we can. Rebecca's been our point person for issues that deal with homelessness, but I want to be there too because it impacts our districts and particularly our whole city, but our whole state, because it's not just the city that should be addressing this issue, it's a state issue, and so we want to ensure that we're providing those resources. But I could go on a political tangent and go, well, if we invested in public schools, and we provided a livable wage, and we provided accessible transportation, maybe we wouldn't have some of these conversations, but that's my dream utopia world.
Any questions?
I have to go to another community council meeting on the west side, and so it's a Meet the Candidates night, so I cover the entire city. So I'll stay for a few minutes, but then I'll leave.
I haven't had a degree or avenues. But questions? Questions or concerns? Yes.
I always have a question.
No, that's fine. That's what we're here for.
I've heard that Speaker Hughes is interested in Pay for Success. He might be one of the originators of it. Was that right?
Well, the concept actually came from the United Way of Salt Lake, but then when we wanted to implement it as a legislative fix in terms of funding that we would need to provide in terms of social impact bonds, the idea behind it is to implement a program, public policy, and this was for preschool, for children at-risk communities, providing preschool for them, but not just having the state pay for it, but have investors, private sector investors also invest in it. They get their payback, the investment comes back to them in cost savings that were reaped if those individuals, those children do not need remediation or special education going forward. So he was the sponsor of that legislation. So not necessarily his idea, but it was an idea that came forward from the United Way of Great Salt Lake, and then they had him sponsor it.
Because I have questions about the program itself, and I'd like to get together with you maybe when there's more
Yeah,
time.
no, that's fine. That's
But
probably
there's two
something to keep in
programs
mind.
going on now, one on recidivism through the Sheriff Winter's office, and one through the Road Home on housing, rapid rehousing, and at the work session for the council yesterday on homelessness, they appeared there and talked about the program, and they have this being measured for success. And I'm wondering how that works, seeing there's only one caseworker for every 35 families. And how can you have any degree of success that's even measurable with that kind of help to a community that's struggling? And how do you, I'm gonna watch it closely.
How do you measure the ROI on it?
Yeah, how do you do that and keep it independent and keep it, you know, so that you're really gaining something out of it, because the negative is as good as the positive.
Right.
And how does that happen? And I don't understand, I can't really get a comfortable answer from anybody. Can you give me that answer if I meet with you?
I will, if I cannot provide it, I will have somebody help us with that. I don't think I could figure that out, you know, but I would, there's people
Because
that we
I've
can
talked
have
to the
there.
people in the county and
Yeah.
talked to different
Yeah, in
people.
terms of the homeless,
And I'm still not
how they're
comfortable.
doing social impact in the homeless services, I'm not up to speed on, but we can get somebody there.
Okay, I'll talk to you.
Yeah,
Thank
Jack.
you.
All right,
Thank
thanks
you.
everyone.
Great. All right, we have someone from SLC Green, that's the city's Department on Sustainability. Can I come on up?
Yeah, I'm gonna just get plugged in here, and
Sure.
hopefully that'll go pretty smoothly.
We're both on the surface.
Oh,
I think we should be able to just talk this out.
Right, yeah, that was as smooth as it gets. Yeah, well, thanks for inviting me here. Yeah, I was invited, actually, I guess there was an interest in kind of energy saving tips for your residents. And so that was kind of a good task for me because I mostly focus on energy efficiency in large commercial buildings. So this was kind of a nice little homework piece for me, a little bit of a refresher. So yeah, I'm Peter Nelson. I'm a sustainability coordinator in the Department of Sustainability. And you know, there's really quite a bit of information out there available for tips on how you can make your home more energy efficient. And that's through the EPA's website or the Department of Energy's website, or even through our two utilities here at Questar. And Rocky Mountain Power. And so I thought maybe what I'd do today is instead we always like to bring something new to the table in our department. So I was going to give you a small tutorial on a brand new tool that's available to residents that will help them track their energy usage. So first I'll just give you a little bit of context. Some stats on residential energy use. These are just kind of a grab bag of interesting facts. One of them is that 48% of a home's energy use comes from both the heating and cooling. Another is that an average family home of 4 spends about $2,200 a year on their utility bills. So that's a significant amount of money that can really have an impact. If you know how to use your energy smartly, you can reduce that. Another is the average home, I thought this was interesting, has about 40 products that are constantly drawing power at any given time. And so that can accumulate to about 10% of a resident's energy usage. And that's called a phantom load. And that can come from appliances that, even though they're turned off, if they're plugged in, they're still drawing a little bit of a load. So that's what that is called, a phantom load. And then lastly, setting your thermostat back or up 10 degrees for 8 hours a day can ultimately save you about 10% on your energy over the course of the year. And what that means is if you're going to be away from your house during the winter, you can go ahead and reduce your furnace temperature with your thermostat by about 10 degrees more than you normally would. And saying in summer, you can set it 10 degrees ahead when you're away, and that can really have an impact. So looking at kind of what the energy consumption sources in a house are, a lot of it's behavioral. It's just, do you leave stuff plugged in? Do you have lights turned on when they don't need to be? Plug and appliance loads, like I said, it's those chargers, it's whatever's drawing power, maybe when you're not even using it, but sometimes when you are. And then heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. If you ever hear someone say HVAC, that's what that stands for. And then lastly, it's once you have your that space heated, it's how well your residence is keeping that energy. So this is interesting. Buildings and energy use is really important to the city right now. About 40% of energy consumption in the United States total comes from the building sector, and that's commercial and residence combined. And if we looked a little bit closer just at in Utah, you can see it matches pretty closely. It's another 40% with residential taking up half of that 40%. So that's a really solid chunk of energy consumption, and that's important to us because where there's energy consumption, there's usually emissions, and there's also a lot of money being expended. So anything you can do to really reduce that chunk is both saving the city money as well as preventing harmful pollutants from being emitted. So getting back to kind of what I was talking about, I said I work with a lot of commercial buildings. So this is something we've been trying to tackle at the city for a few years now. We have something called the Mayor's Skyline Challenge and Project Skyline. And that's essentially where we're going out and recruiting commercial building owners and managers to reduce their energy consumption. We invite them to attend workshops, and we have networking events where they can meet energy service providers. And what we ask them to do really is to do something called benchmarking, which is mostly what I'm going to be talking about tonight. And that's essentially the act of just measuring your energy usage. There's a fantastic tool that the EPA has. It's online software. It's completely free, and it's called Portfolio Manager. It's essentially where you input all of your energy data, and it will, based on how big your building is, what kind of building it is, when it was built, and where it's located in the country, it'll give you a pretty good readout on whether or not it's efficient or not. You can see in that upper left corner there a score that says 86. A building is measured based on that scale of 0 to 100, where in this case a building that has a score of 86. So that means it performs better than 86% of buildings like it. So we encourage building owners to use this to benchmark. And then every year we have recognition for our winners. This is Intermountain Healthcare actually receiving an award from Mayor Biskupski earlier this summer. And so it's something that we really think is significant. And we always thought, well, it's great that it's available for commercial buildings. We wish we could really hit the residential sector too with this, because just being able to measure how you use energy really has an impact on what kind of decisions you make on how to step up the efficiency in a building. So like I said, what's great about Portfolio Manager is that it's such a widely used software database that it's really reliable, it's very standardized, and again, because it's free, it's something that's available to everyone. So the brand new tool that I wanted to kind of give you a tutorial on tonight was, it's the Energy Star Home Advisor. So it's essentially the same tool, but it's available for your home. And it's going to not only give you an analysis of how your home is functioning in terms of other homes like it, but it'll even give you some customized lists of things that you can do to address specifically the energy consumption in your house. So let's just take a look at what that dashboard looks like. I kind of put this together today. You can kind of see it has just the home basics. That's where you describe what aspects of your house. There's your utility bills where you input all your energy data, and then you can describe some of the characteristics of your house, like the lighting and appliances, the building envelope, heating and cooling, and any other home features you have. So just taking a look at that, I put together this profile. I actually even put in the picture of my house just because why not? We have, it's a single family detached home built in 1908. It has 1,800 square feet of conditioned square footage. The fuels used are electricity and natural gas. Renewables, yes, we have renewables in there, and we have 3 occupants. So that's an example of kind of what your profiling of your house would look like. Next is where you input your energy data. So you can get that from Rocky Mountain Power or Questar. You just go onto their website, find your account, and you can get a 12-month readout of all of your energy usage. So you can see right here, I have electricity, and I just input 571 kilowatt hours in September, and so on and so forth through the entire year. And you can do that with natural gas as well. And so then I went ahead and described a few things about my house too. So I had 11 light fixtures total. Only about half of them are high efficiency light bulbs. What else? Oh yeah, so we have the types of appliances, a refrigerator. I have something that was made in 1982. I bought one in 1988, or a clothes washer. I didn't buy it, but someone did. Then the same thing with the building envelope. And if you don't know something about your house, that's okay. So it says attic roof insulation R value. Well, I have no idea. I really haven't gotten into that, but I went ahead and described that. And already you can kind of see it's starting to accumulate recommendations. It has 5 for what to do with lighting and appliances, 5 for what to do with building envelope. So finally, the important part is the analysis that comes with that. So I went back, looked at the utility bill section, and we can see that my score is 9.7. And so no one get excited. My house built in 1908 is not more efficient than 9 out of 10 homes. I'll tell you a little bit about that. But you can see right here, that's just a graph over the course of the year of energy consumption. And just from looking at that, I can see that, well, it's between January and April that my energy consumption goes way up. And so that tells me that there's a lot I can do regarding heating in my house, because it is tied quite a bit to what's going on in winter. And so then recommendations. If you click on the right side after you look at your profile, it has all these recommendations. So you can, as you can see, make an assessment of my house. There's 1 there, 5 each for both the building envelope and the lighting appliances. And then in this case, I just did a drop down to show what the recommendations for the heating and cooling were. And in my case, it was consider replacing the heating system, and that's right in line with kind of what that graph was telling us. Getting a new water heater, that really needed to happen, and having a professional tune up your HVAC system. So now that you have your analysis and your recommendations, what can you do with that? What are your options? So in this case, as it said, maybe you need to have, or in my case, I need to have someone audit my home. So I went to Questar, and it turns out Dave, for $25, they'll send a professional to come do a professional audit of your house. And that's actually a really great deal, and they'll come with very specific results for what to do with your HVAC or maybe your heating system. And I always like a professional to come tell me what to do. So I think that's a great option. And another is you might have a lot of recommendations for appliances. And so just like Questar, Rocky Mountain Power has a number of incentives for you to replace a water heater or washer and dryer. A lot of times it's an Energy Star rated appliance, and by doing that and sending in proof that you purchased this to Rocky Mountain Power, they'll send you money back for having done that. So there are a number of options. I said I would tell you why I have that high score on the house, and it's because I have a solar PD array that is basically supplying me with all my electricity. So my profile thinks I just have a fantastic home, but it's not really taking into account that my electricity use almost is non-existent there. So that's why I have a really high score, but I'll take it. So Anyway, so that's the conclusion of the presentation. Yeah, so check this out. It's on, if you just go to Energy Star, you'll find the section for residential housing. And, you know, if you're a nerd and you just need a hobby, I think this might be something that I'd recommend you look into.
Cool.
So,
We'll
yeah,
post a
thanks very
list
much.
to that on our Facebook. Do we have any questions for Peter?
Peter, you know, the city sends out a lot of enclosures in its mailings and its water bills, and then also the District 4 representative, Derek Kitchen, sends out a newsletter, and so it would be great to put, you know, this program for homeowners just in a little box in those mailings that go out from the city council. That could, in the course of the year, it would cover the whole city. In the mailings that go out in the water bill, and then the water bill has inserts.
Yeah,
from time to time.
I think that's a really great
It
idea.
doesn't run up the cost except for the printing of the insert, and because the newsletter's going to be printed anyway.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's a great idea. This tool I was just showing you is really brand new. It was in like maybe 2 months ago.
And that's why everybody should want to
Yeah,
include it in
exactly.
the newsletter.
So I'll
Yeah.
get to planning with my staff, and we'll figure out how we let people know about that, because definitely, you know, when I give these presentations on the commercial sector, people want to know what they can do with the residential, and there just wasn't a great tool that was available for free like that. So I think that's a great idea.
And then the other things, I know that you focused on commercial, and now there's this new tool for homeowners. There's a big component in there of landlords' apartments that I don't hear that you're covering under the commercial, and it's not covered under the homeowners either. So targeting those landlords in terms of energy savings could be really helpful. I know the tax credits are probably going to inspire for the solar installations. Really getting that information out would be helpful to landlords.
Yeah, and also, you know, we're trying to encourage people to just kind of be more aware of the fact that energy is something that's kind of a controllable cost. And so maybe as people are shopping around for what multifamily housing unit they want to live in, they might want to know, well, how does this brick thing built in 1916 perform as well as something that was just built on 4th South last year? So that's just a lot of the awareness we're trying to build too. But yeah, I'm sorry.
Oh, how specific do you have to get when you're entering your information, like the types of utilities you have? Do I need to know exactly the model of my toaster?
You know, when I was creating the profile, it was asking when was it made, and so I think you kind of get a lot of information, or they do, based on the year. But you know, that can be kind of tough. I was just making a lot of guesses based on what I had. So, but the more specific you can get, it's always the better. But, yeah.
Cool. Any other questions? All right. Well,
Okay.
we appreciate it.
Thanks very much.
Yeah. It's very interesting. So I haven't seen anyone come in. I don't believe Right to Development has shown up.
Do they know where to come, Michael?
Yes, they do.
Because we're in a different room.
Yeah, so we had someone outside to make sure they knew where they were going, and I spoke to the organizers of the other meeting, and she knew to direct people this way. So this is the, well, I guess we don't really need anything else right now. So this is the development on 4th South where the Sizzler has mostly burned down. It's quite a large project, so I really wish we knew something about it, but we don't. So hopefully they'll send us some information or something at some point.
So this is in the transit corridor, and they could go through the process without presenting to the community council at
Yes.
all.
They did,
Yeah,
they already did.
frankly, they did say they would be attending this meeting, but when they found out it wasn't a requirement, they weren't really stoked on it, so I'm not exactly surprised they didn't show up. But yeah, they're not statutorily required to show up.
Apologize, I have to go to another meeting,
Sorry.
so thank you guys. Have a good day, bye.
Yeah,
Do we know if they're planning on housing or another commercial building? Do we know what they're gonna do?
the last information I found, which was on the Building Salt Lake blog, was that it would be, I believe, primarily or entirely residential. But yeah, I don't know.
So you know, they're not here, they were invited, so I'm gonna go ahead and say this. This is the property that's next to the historic Ochre School, right?
Yes, yes, I'm
Right.
sorry. I don't know.
Yep. Right, so this is the property, the Ochre School is a National Register site, it's not in the City Historic District, it's a National Register site, standalone, and it has a line of historic trees that are on the south boundary. Those trees, from my understanding from emails I've gotten, are gonna die because this new project can be built all the way to the property line, and there can be underground parking all the way to the property line, and the root systems of the trees are there. So, this is something about the zero setback that I believe is an unintended consequence. There is nothing, you know, I got asked, is there anything that can be done? And I said, unless there's federal money and you can appeal to a section 106, I can't think of a thing. So, just so everybody knows, I think those trees are gonna die.
Okay.
And there's nothing that can be done except that it is an unintended consequence of this new policy we have to build out to the edges of properties, both above ground and underground. And it's truly sad because those trees cannot be replaced.
It's a really good point, Cindy, and, you know, I know that you're aware that we're relooking at the TSA zone.
Right.
Have you made that comment before on the TSA zone stuff?
No, not on that TSA, because this just came up within the last couple of months. I haven't written anything on the TSA since I found out about these trees, which is really sad, but something
I'll
like
bring it
this,
up
there
too.
should be an offset in the, I mean, these people should be getting points for backing off from the root systems on the
Absolutely.
first level of cars, for crying out loud.
Yep.
They, you know, the roots of those trees are very superficial, and they wouldn't have to surrender all of their underground thing, but,
So Cindy,
It's really sad.
just to provide context for everyone, so this project would be in the TSA zone, which is the zone surrounding the tracks line in 4th South. And there's we call it the point system, and you earn points or deduct points based on certain things that your project has or doesn't have. And if you meet certain point thresholds, you can, as I understand it, skip certain parts of the process or circumvent certain issues. And so currently the city is re-examining the point system, and I don't hate to put you on the spot, but where are we in that process, and what are the chances people can get involved?
We've gone to the planning commission in a couple of work sessions to talk about some of the changes that I mean, it's a relatively new zone, and now that we've seen buildings getting built, it's like, oh, that's not exactly what we intended, which is always the way it is. You can't predict everything. And so we are relooking at that. I believe, I don't think we've had a recommendation go through the planning commission yet, but that would probably be the next step. And it is the intent of the zone is to allow increased density and allow a process that's pretty easy if they provide a lot of these amenities in order to make the project better. And some of it has to do with energy efficiency, some of it has to do with siting, lighting. Affordable housing is one of the things you can get points for, and we're talking about increasing the points for that. I think, Cindy, your idea is great on the setback issue, if there are trees on adjacent properties. So this particular project did go through the process and did receive enough points so they didn't have to go through the planning commission process. And that was probably about a year ago, so I don't know if their approval has expired or not. I suspect it's close.
When I spoke to them, they said they're breaking ground this month, which is why I wanted to get them at this meeting. So
Yeah.
whatever it is, it's going up soon.
Yeah, it will start construction relatively soon. It is a big building, and it actually spurred, specifically that project spurred some of the changes that we're talking about that have to do with lengths of the front of the building unbroken. It's called facade, the front facade, and that needs to be broken up more because this is a really long building.
Okay, but there's still a chance for us to submit comments,
absolutely,
so
yeah,
I'll have that,
definitely.
that information on our website and Facebook if you have
Yeah.
comments on the changes to the TSA
In fact, if
zone.
you go to the planning division website, saltlakecity.gov, actually it's anyway, saltlakecitygov.com. That's our,
slcgov.com.
yeah.
SLC.gov.
And if you go to the planning division, we have a section that talks about current initiatives. And those are things like changes to our various zoning that the council has asked us to look at, or the planning commission. And there should be a description, a little two-pager on there that kind of talks about what's being proposed and talks about the status of it. So that's how it's supposed to go.
Great.
So are the trees getting the water from the school?
They're on the school property, but their root systems are going into the property that's going to be redeveloped.
Okay, so if you could save the root systems, they would still get water from the school.
Yeah,
Yeah.
school's watering, they're irrigating for
Do you know, have the design plans been submitted? Do you know? Have you seen them?
Yeah, I've seen preliminary design. I haven't seen the building permit set yet.
Okay.
And I see lots of
Right.
buildings. And I couldn't tell you off the top of my head specifics about
Yeah.
it, but I know that it's a long building.
Well, I'll keep doing what I can to track down information, and whatever I can find, I'll post on our website so we can all hopefully take a look at the plans. Other things to discuss in terms of community issues, Cindy? Yes.
Just an update on the Trolley Square proposals.
Right.
So, I don't know whether people know that the ombudsman did respond, and he agreed with our member Jack Davis that the hearing back in March had not been properly noticed. And so there will be a rehearing of that hearing that occurred in March. And then the planning division decided that it would have a rehearing of the subsequent hearing on the FDU in 2.
Right.
Both of those rehearings will occur at the second meeting in October of the planning commission, so
I think it's 26th. Okay.
the
26th. And again, we'll remind everyone, and I want to make sure we're all on the same page. This is the project just south of Trolley Square, probably our biggest meeting of the year. People showed up to learn about that one. So it's a
And
long
the
process.
project, the trolley project itself, all it is the reason.
Right.
So they're not talking about a specific project yet. They have a few steps to go before they get there. So this is just
right.
changing the zoning.
And what's interesting is we're talking about the zoning of that area, but we're also talking about the zone itself at that planning
Exactly.
commission. So
Right.
they'll both have far-reaching implications, not just in our community, but throughout the city, especially in terms of that zone. So, is there any other?
And most of the zone changes that are being proposed have to do with providing required setbacks and step backs so that when it's adjacent to existing residential uses. And that was something that the council specifically wanted us to address in our code.
Dustin?
Just a question, because I'm trying to place that. Was that the orange and black building that looked so?
No, that was that's Cowboy Partners. This one is Trolley Square Ventures.
Okay.
Yes. So this one, yes, we're just talking about the zoning now. The newspaper did have some renderings of it. It was a kind of an old school. I don't even know how to describe it. Interesting building, but right now we're just talking about the zoning. So.
It will go eventually to the Historic Landmark Commission,
Yes.
as far as we know. And they will have an opportunity to look at the design and the maps and scale and all that.
Okay, any other questions, comments, concerns? Okay, as always, we're open to suggestions for other people to invite to come speak to us, so let me know if you have any suggestions. Thanks for tuning in on Facebook, and thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.